I'm bringing another one, another beautiful soul who's touched my heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. And hopefully, in our conversation, can really touch your heart as well. Today, I bring to you Calvin T. Mann, the encourager, who is the co-founder, if I'm not mistaken, because I know you work alongside your amazing wife, of EMIY, which is, I want to make sure I say this right, Encourage Me Young. And so Calvin is based out of Detroit. Everybody, Calvin Mann.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it. So, all right. Talk to me about where Calvin the Encourager came from. That's not something we just put on as a hat. I'm just going to encourage people today.
So this story is very intricate, right? It takes this is a journey and a half, right? Because many people, Carrie, see a person and they just say immediately they might apply judgment, they might even apply care and love, right? But they don't know this person's true story and identity. So I'm gonna take the glasses off, right? In my story starts, and the Encourage Me I'm Young story starts in 1992. I was coaching high school basketball. I became the youngest varsity basketball coach at 23. A friend of mine I was dating at the time, she asked me at the time I was cutting hair at the same time, and she asked me to volunteer at this daycare. Now, this daycare was all white kids. So it gave me an opportunity. I said to myself, maybe I should find out what's the difference. And
Mm.
I was young, inquisitive. I wanted to know. And so I said, sure, I'll take it. I got 2 days off. I'll take those 2 days and I'll come. Plus, they were paying, right? And so my 2 days from the barbershop, at the time, my sister and I had been working together in a salon. I was the barber. And I'm working in this daycare with all these white kids, and something happened. The kids immediately, I was the same person I am today. The kids immediately took to me. So all of a sudden, these little kids start inviting me over for dinner. I want Calvin to come over, right? And so me and the young lady was dating, and one day, right at lunchtime, she was going down uh, to do lunch. I was sitting in the chair, and the door, it was summertime, the door blew open like the wind, and the words, Encourage Me, I'm Young, came through the door. And it hit me just like that. And I was like, wow. Right. So I picked up the phone. Of course, at that time, I called my uncle. Hey, man. And I tell him, because my uncle was the head basketball coach for the boys. I was the head basketball coach for the girls. And so I told him about encouragement. Yeah, we came in, we told the kids. So during the basketball season, the kids would pick slogans for their shooting shirts and put the words Encourage Me, I'm Young up under the slogan. So over that time period, about 92 to about 99, we were able to manifest over 40 young men to go to college.
Wow.
And two young ladies went off to college from girls basketball. And once the job came open, they went in a different direction. They didn't want me to have the job, not knowing that I had been literally, excuse me, I had literally
Bless
been
you.
developing these kids the whole time. So kid walks through the door, where you want to go to college is my first ask. Well, I want to go to Syracuse University. Okay, you sure? Yeah. You're in the ninth grade. This is what it's going to take. So I begin to develop them skills, everything, right? And when I moved on, my son was in middle school. And so I went and helped coach my son's middle school team 2 years in a row to championship games. At the same time, I get a call in 2013. Now, mind you, all kind of stuff happened in between there. So I was going to be a comedian.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
learned to write, right? So I learned it because I'm actually funny, right?
Are you?
But
I
I
didn't
learned,
know.
yeah. And so I started writing comedy, but in order to write comedy, you have to study. So I was studying the newspaper looking for different topics. And I kept seeing children dying. So in 2004, prior to 2004, I was at this time, now I'm working at Northwest Airlines. I started there in 94. I'm standing up in the break rooms preaching. I'm mentoring managers' kids. I got different kids at the ticket counter, the parents' kids at the ticket counter. I'm helping people get married. And in 2004, all of these affirmations started pouring out of me. I'm talking like I got so many of them copywritten that I can't find originals, but I just was sending them to be copywritten. And so one of them that stood out, a friend of mine was going to a closing on a house because I even dabbled in real estate. And at this time, I was so vain. Let me tell you how vain I was. I was so vain, I was getting my name braided in my head,
Really?
literally.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I was out
But you
there.
know what? But I want to
So
but I
even,
want to highlight a couple things though, because I think it's really important for the audience to hear this. So even though you struggled with ego or vanity, right? Really kind of flossing, flexing, whatever. You also, there was just a part of you that in like naturally was driven to uplift and encourage other people. And so for anybody who's like, oh, sometimes I act, the reality is you'll be pushed to be called to do what you do. Would you not agree?
oh yeah, no question. As long as you touching it, right? Right. Even if you experience it, you didn't know it. Like I had no idea this was gonna be it, right?
Yeah.
The quote, one day we're riding to a closing, and the words, time is all we have to change what we are, came out of my spirit. And I was like, whoa. Right? And I'm talking to him, and I wrote it down. We were in a pickup truck. I wrote it down. I was like, look at that one. He was like, man. I was like, I'm starting with that one. So I was volunteering at a local printer in Ferndale, Michigan on my off days. Here I am volunteering again, right? So I'm volunteering to work for them for free to learn how to print t-shirts,
So good.
right? So as I'm in there, I'm going to print my own. So I order 100 t-shirts and I print. At the time, the logo was E period, M period, I period, Y period. And I'm like, on the back, it says, time is all we have to change what we are. So my brother has got a rap artist. The rap artist, his name was Vicious. He was signed with DreamWorks, literally off of one of my hooks because I sing as well, right? So this guy is performing. I'm sitting at a bar and I see a 12-year-old gets killed. He was taking the garbage out. And I was like, that's it. I'm gonna start laying shirts with kids was getting killed and offer hope to families. So I jump up, watch the news, knowing where this house was at because it was on the news, and I drive to the location, and everybody's on the porch yelling and screaming. back and forth. You can hear it. So I pull up, hey, and park on the corner. I says, before I park, I says, the father in there. And they were like, yeah. So I park my car on the corner and get out. As I'm walking up, it's completely silent. They don't know me from a can of paint. So I get to the door, and on my card, I have my card and I have this t-shirt. And I hand the t-shirt and the card through the door. She puts her foot in the door. So I wouldn't come in, but just enough for her hand to come out. I said, let the father know. If you guys need anything, here's my card, here's my number. But get his t-shirt to the dad. So, not knowing, again, I was going to become this. I just was
Yeah.
offering hope. So,
But more to the point, what I also want to highlight again is you take action, right? So I hear in your story, which is amazing, and many of these things I didn't know, right? You weren't afraid to try things. I hear, you volunteered to learn a new skill. You sing because that obviously brings you joy. You were you got inspired with this quote, and instead of just having it land, you took action and you created this shirt. And so I want to encourage anybody watching this, either in your community or mine or anywhere, that the reality is you can grow and expand into an unknown version of yourself, right? Because you just said you didn't know you were going to be where you are today, simply by getting that insight, getting that intuitive hit, and then taking action rather than just keep on moving on, right?
oh yeah, it's the one thing about your journey is where and what you pray to, who and what you pray for, and why are you praying, meditating, asking the universe for anything.
Mm,
So as this scenario goes down, I call my brother. My brother Courtney was living on the east side at the time. I called him on the phone and just to check on him because it was a war, a literal drug war going on, where people were being killed and brand new guns were being left at the site. So you couldn't trace who had what. I mean, like this was a real war. And so he said, I'm okay. I said, oh, yeah. He's like, yeah. He said, but did you see the news? I said, what about it? He said, man, my 12-year-old nephew was shot and killed. I said, not the, I said, man, I took the, he said, man, he said, bro, I didn't even think that that was you. My whole family want to meet you. So I pulled back up to the house on Friday. The father comes out the house and is in my chest, in my arms for 10 minutes. I meet his mom because this was my dad's son. I meet his mom, had no idea that I was going to meet his mom and his entire family. So the father is still right here. Still today, the father still has the shirt. Now that's
unbelievable.
2004. So that's 20, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I kept laying shirts where kids were being killed, offering hope to families through apparel. I ended up, it ended up on Ron's house, NFL Network, MTV. But in 2007, a mom reached out to me to mentor her son because she couldn't get him off the video games. Her son was literally unmotivated, sitting in the house, locked in on video games. So she asked me to come up. She lived in a very, uh, very rich area, is where she lived. So I pull up to her house. She opens the door. I go in. I think She hands me $200. Every time I show up, she hands me. I showed up 4 times, and he got up and took off. So she no longer had to deal with that scenario. So I keep going by laying shirts with kids getting killed. I get a call from her. She asked me all these questions, and then she asked me to meet her for lunch. And she hands me this booklet, and she gives me the nonprofit Encourage Me I'm Young Inc. So that's how I got the nonprofit. It was a mom. She was a pastor. And I'm telling you, the life of me, I cannot remember her name.
Mm.
So she was the one that said to me, "You're going to need this." I can remember her face because she was super fine, right? But I cannot remember her name. And so she was the one that told me, "You are going to need this." And so she handed me this nonprofit. Little did I know that I would continue to laying shirts where kids was getting killed. And in the environment, people, you'll be surprised that all this work that has been done, we don't even have a facility.
Wow.
We we have to rent a facility. If we had a facility, I could triple the work for all these families. Now, mind you,
Mm-hmm.
since 2007, we've impacted over 23,000 families through reading, speaking engagements across the board, events, awareness. We've impacted our billboards that we do for the Smash Suicide campaign. Millions of hits, millions of people, right? We've had 12 billboards locally, 7 nationally. Still, you would be surprised. We are not invested in like that. We don't have uh, a lot of things that nonprofits have, right? So here I come, 2010, I'm working at the juvenile. I'm at the juvenile when I realize I'm looking around, day one, this is not for me. But I'm in this juvenile, and it teaches me. It's almost like this journey has taught me the answer to what is wrong with our boys. So I'm in the juvenile, and that's 2010, right? So I started there 2009, 2010. I get with this guy, like, we got to do something about this. 2011, the beds in the juvenile were low, and they went out and they picked up adult males to fill the beds up in the juvenile. And I lost it. So you had dudes 22, 24 who were fathers, got snatched off their porch and put into the system so they could get more money from the state, poor pupil, to fill up this. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I lost it. Now, one, while working in the juvie, there no access to the library. The library was the cleanest building in the juvie. So me, I snap, I get with the guy, we put together a flyer and we pass this flyer out. And like that, I have 350 boys on the east side of Detroit from 8 to 18, pulling them out the way because I knew they were picking these boys up to fill the beds up on the rich, which means the rich was getting richer off these boys. So I was losing it. You hear me? So now we got these boys. We go into this church. Now we in this church. The church recreation is across the street from the church. We're asking the church for help. The deacon is charging us a lot of money per hour. We are only charging the kids a certain amount of money with them being able to pay to come in. We only ask for 1 hour. and then they could play for the other hour. We staged it so they could come in and get some exercise with the cognitive and the physical, right?
Yep.
We get all the way up to 14 weeks, and the deacon cut us off. We didn't get no help from the church. They was just making the money. We didn't get nothing. So I had to, again, I was young in the game. So I kind of checked out on the deacon. Y'all don't really care about boys. Y'all see, we got all these boys. You didn't send nobody to help or nothing. Not one fight. Nah, according to television and everything else, black boys, we're violent.
Yep. It's
We
so
didn't have,
true.
we did not have one fight in 14 weeks. Not one.
I
So
wanna, can I say, I'm gonna be like really vulnerable. As a white woman right now, my significant other he's black. He's from Ghana. So he's um a little bit different, but I realized maybe a couple years ago that implicit bias that if I was in a room filled with black men, that I immediately felt threatened immediately simply because of the color of their skin. And that really disturbed me because I grew up um my family is multicultural, meaning I didn't learn family values from my immediate nuclear family. I learned them on the streets, with different cultures, the Spanish culture, my friends of color. And so when I realized that a couple years ago, I was mortified, but then I started to look at the reason why, right? Because that wasn't my experience. But much to your point, that was a narrative that's been pervasive, especially when you have cops in the 90s, right? Who was highlighted in the TV show. And so that was my own experience. And it took me a long time to be able to change that narrative within my own psyche so that I wouldn't immediately have a visceral response of fear based on who I was in the room with.
you have to uncondition your condition.
Yes. Yep.
So so I'm we're at 14 weeks. Today, our mentoring program is 14 weeks. Our outcomes happen in 14 weeks. The shift in a boy that comes into our program happens in 14 weeks. The parental involvement at 98%, it all happens in 14 weeks.
Mm.
So, so after that, I would grab 200 boys on average for the next few years. Now I got this nonprofit. I don't know what to do with this nonprofit. Excuse me. I don't know nothing. Like, what you want me to do with this? So when I first got in 2007, we used it to help build another nonprofit. And then 2009, I started the vision that God gave me. Now, mind you, I wrote all this in this little red book in the basement one day. It was terribly written. I had no idea. I was talking about uniforms. I had quotes. I was doing quotes for people's weddings. Like all of this was happening throughout the years, but me, nothing, right? So I go through a divorce, right? And I understand why. Because of the very thing you said, I was doing so much this way that she was neglected. And because she was neglected, there were things and tools that I didn't apply. And I
Mm.
even tried to save it toward the end. So that was 20 seasons gone. But something, this purpose, which I soon would discover was a purpose. And I'll never forget that the light went off and I called. I said, I know what I'm supposed to do. And I was in the middle of some real estate. I said, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know who I am. All right. It wasn't good enough. And I understand. I'm not mad at her at all, right? Because I was a mess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I tried so much, but this thing pulled me tremendously. So it was like I had no choice. So in 2000, right after the 2011, 2012, my friend and brother Rodney answers a Facebook post like, who has a gym? And so I go over to the gym. He shows me the gym. The pastor was getting his hair cut by me and never told me he was the pastor of the church. So when I walked in, because he would come get his hair cut and we would have these crazy conversations. And he loved that. Well, he would be the one, the pastor would be the one to open up arms, and we established ourselves at Rosedale Park Baptist Church.
I
And so
love
we were
that
there.
so much.
We were there. And I would grab 200 boys, 200 boys. We would grab boys. And then I began to recognize that literacy was an issue. We had boys that couldn't read. We had families. As soon as we asked for applications, we went from 200 to damn near 10. As soon as we asked just to fill out this little bit of information. So now I'm in this process. I'm starting to speak, do all these things. We're doing a pancake breakfast, bringing the community together, sharing resources that they don't know. We still do it till this day. I met Z Pace along the way. Her name was Z Ramel Pace. So Z Pace is the one that taught me the pancake breakfast. She used to host a huge pancake breakfast at St. Cecilia in Detroit. And so her and her husband taught us the pancake breakfast. I then took the pancake breakfast and made it a service project for my mentees. So now my mentees have to serve the community every pancake breakfast.
Mm, so good.
Z Z comes into my life by way of my oldest son's mom and is literally helping and teaching me and showing me. But she has brain cancer. And I don't know that she has brain cancer until I am told she has brain cancer and she couldn't show up at a pancake breakfast. So then, after that pancake breakfast, where the brain cancer has set in, her husband getting to call me, you got to come see her. She just, she just know she keep calling your name. So when I arrive at the house after a pancake breakfast, he opens the door. He tells me, your name is the only name she can remember.
Wow.
She can only remember your name. And so, of course, I'm in the hallway, tears pouring on my face. Like, he was like, you want to see her? I was like, man, come on, man. He was like, yeah, come on, come upstairs. She want to see you. When I saw what cancer had done to her, as a child, I saw it to my cousin Shirley, my mother's friend. Shirley was my mother's cousin. They were gambling partners, right? So we grew up with the house gambling parties. And so my mom and Shirley, so we saw Shirley be reduced. As a kid, I saw her be reduced by way of cancer. So Z, I'm not expecting to see, but Z, the cancer ate her. It was like looking at a child in the bed. And I was, and I'm talking, she covered herself up and she said, I said, hey, baby. And she was like, hey. I said, how you doing? She said, oh, I'm doing fine. I said, I hear you keep calling my name, right? And she was like, yeah. Calvin, promise me you will never stop. And I was like, are you serious? She was like, you can never stop. Those families need you. I was like, Z, say, I love you. She said, I love you too. And she turned, she's like, you can go now. She didn't want me to see her no more. So it's that impact in the middle of all the things that's happening to me. I'm losing family. I got people that don't believe. The everybody is like is everyone is against me, except for this journey. So this was the only thing that didn't say nothing bad to me, but gave me bad things to overcome to build me. So in that process, here I am, walk out of Z, get in the car with my kids, and I'm losing everything at this time. Everything. I done lost houses, everything.
Yeah, your
And I
wife.
didn't quite understand.
Yep.
I didn't quite understand. And so in that process in 2009, I met Heather, and we were always friends. She wrote the first program. And when I realized that when I was asked to let go and, for the divorce and everything, it was a time in my life like, you don't want to displace your kids.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to say, okay, this house that we're in, you got to go your way, I got to go my way. You don't want to displace your kids. And no one ever recognizes that when we split or divorce, more men will go to poverty before they displace their kids. And I was one of them. And I didn't realize that, okay, in this divorce, where am I going? So I was sleeping at the barber shop, acting like I was going somewhere and pretend everybody, I'm at the barber shop. The whole time, I'm still mentoring. I'm still helping families. I'm still selling t-shirts. I'm still cutting hair. I'm still going through this process of losing everything. So a friend of mine, one of my dads, asked me if I would come stay at his apartment. He had a 2-bedroom apartment. He said, man, you ain't got to sleep here. Come on, just give me a little bit of money on the utilities. My daughter was a senior in high school. So here I am in an apartment with this friend of mine, another single man, and my daughter gets dropped off to me. And now, with no car, with nothing, I got to make sure my daughter gets to work, get to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. So here I am because the Lord is blessing me. I'm being blessed. There's no question. So now I got my daughters her senior years. She gets to school every day. She gets home every day. Every day. So I keep going.
Let me
2000.
ask you though, because that's hard. And I've been in that situation. I walked away from everything for my kids, right? For their mental health. Um, were there times when you wanted to give up and just like you just couldn't? Or I mean, because that's a tough place to be in when you lose your car, you lose all your assets, and your parent trying to show up and care for your child, and really you have to continuously surrender to a power greater than yourself, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, you just do, to be able to survive. And but there are times when I know, for me personally, like, oh my God, I'm over this. I'm ready to quit. And every time I wanted to, the universe was like, nah, baby, you better step up and step out. What was your experience like?
I had had so much good on my
Mm,
path.
yeah,
I had had so many prayers within my journey that when he opened up that apartment, a friend of mine, she took me. Now, the girl that took me to the apartment was the granddaughter of uh, Elijah Muhammad.
I don't know who that is, but who is that?
So Elijah Muhammad is the Muslim movement that you see in the black community where men
Oh,
come up to the cars. And
wow. Yup. Okay, cool.
he,
Okay.
this was his.
Yeah.
So this is his granddaughter. She took. She gave me a blanket, and I was there by myself. And I remember looking out the window, and it was a full moon, and I said, "Okay, you beat me. You didn't beat me till you didn't whoop me till I'm right here. I'm gonna do nothing but listen to you from now on. That's
Mm,
it. I've taken all that you can do. I'm gonna listen to you." And I got busy. Regardless to what was happening, my competitiveness and all the fabric from where I was born, from my legacies, from my parents, from the prayers, from the people, the unknown prayers, the whole nine, literally began
yep.
to lift me. There was a time in 2000, not 2000, but when I went through my first divorce, I had no idea. I was young, right? I was 23 years old. The devil was trying to get me. I contemplated suicide. The
Mm,
first time I contemplated suicide, I was 10. The second time, the devil was trying to get me, and I fought it off. I ran. I stayed in my sister's basement, and I ran till I collapsed in the park. I just ran. I didn't care. I ran and ran and ran and ran and ran and ran until I collapsed.